Good evening and welcome to Face. For the Newsfirst team, I'm Niresh Eliatambi. Now, is the economy on the right track? We have an NPP government in office right now, and it has implemented some economic measures, some welfare measures as well. But we need the experts to tell us and to warn us if we are going down the wrong path. After all, remember, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa went down the wrong path, and very few people were sounding the alarm. But we have with us today one such expert, Dr. Harsha De Silva, who did sound the alarm many years before the economic disaster. Welcome, Dr. Harsha. Welcome back to our program.
Thank you, Naresh.
Right. So, Dr. Harsha, you are, of course, well versed in economics and policies, having been a former state minister and, of course, long time member of parliament from the SJB. You are running as a candidate from the Colombo district this time, and I do hope you do win, because we need people with your expertise in parliament, obviously. Tell us, what do you see with the policies of the present government, although it's early days, just a month and a half?
Thanks. I can see the direction. I'm just going to focus on the economics here for a moment. The first sort of indication that there was a change in the thinking was when I guess it was the first cabinet meeting. They said absolutely no sale of anything of Sri Lankan Airlines, so that from here on out the taxpayers will have to carry the burden of Sri Lankan Airlines, and if it is to expand its fleet, it is not going to be possible, because under the IMF agreement nothing can be spent on such measures. All losses will have to be carried by the people, and of course loans to be taken to sort of balance it. Then yesterday we heard that the proposed reform of the electricity utility, the gigantic what do you call the monopoly, right? The reforms were going to, I guess, at least slow down, if not, rolled back, and they had said certainly no privatization at all. So, which means the plan for the sector reform, we'll have to see, what their game plan is. Then we also saw the statements on the IMF, for instance. We had a long debate, even in this channel, that the DSA, or the Debt Sustainability Agreement, cannot be changed. I argued, but people who came on your show, Niresh, counter-argued, saying that they are going to change it, they can change it, and so on. But now, on the one hand, President Anukumar Dissanayake has told the IMF, the bondholders, and also advised the Treasury and the Central Bank to appoint Citibank to issue fresh bonds and to get the consent of all bondholders to carry out the agreement reached between the ad hoc committee and the advisors for the then president, and the Treasury Secretary and Governor Central Bank of the then president, Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe. Now, having said that, we hear now in the last few days, no, that is not the case. We are going to give it time and see how we may change the debt restructuring agreement.
So, are we getting conflicting signals here?
I mean, in the sense, I see reversal of the reforms. Two, one major one is Sri Lankan, and what we are hearing of electricity, and also that they certainly did either they did not understand at all what they meant when they said they can change the DSA. Changing the DSA means changing the debt restructuring agreement. I mean, that is the first thing. And then, of course, you'll have to renegotiate, take about a year or two to, come up with a new agreement.
It's a long process.
But that's not what they argued. What I'm saying is, perhaps you and I, when discussing one side record, for an hour we argued the details of this. But the common person does not really know. So they were of the impression, look, these guys are going to change it. And that's what they said, right? Which is now either not the case, or they once again are trying to deceive the people by saying, we may try to do it, down the road, etc. So there is a lot of confusion that I see. But one thing is clear, that certainly the reform agenda is going to be rolled back.
So let's take this case by case, Dr. Harsha. Sri Lankan Airlines, a white elephant for many years. Of course, when there was the management of Emirates, it seemed to be doing better with a new fleet and a lot of awards and so on, and a lot of automation and so on and so forth. And of course, there was a symbiotic relationship with the larger airline Emirates, which was beneficial. But since then, for the most part, the airline has been running losses. I think recently it had an operational profit. But by and large, in it, when you look at throughout its history, the problem is the mismanagement. So, is there any indication that suddenly there, we'll get these wonderful management people, from among Sri Lankans who will appear and guide this airline to stellar success?
I mean, look, they've appointed Mr. Saraganegoda, who is on the board of a blue chip. And he has said categorically, no, not a single share shall be sold. So that means the board and the management will have to take on the responsibility. I mean, Ashok Patrige was also, previous manager, chairman, also comes from a, top
a corporate house.
So it is not that there has not been good people at the top managing, and that's the chair. The board has been, I guess, reasonably all right, and the management. I don't think you can find too many faults with those guys. I think we have a foreigner who is a CEO who they brought in at a competitive remuneration. The issue goes beyond that. Also, you see, Sri Lankan Airlines has defaulted on the dollar bonds, right?
That's right.
That's right. So therefore, making a operational profit, has to be taken in the context of the massive, I think, over $1 billion of carry forward losses and a massive debt. It has some of which was transferred to the Treasury a few months ago. Now, take a look at Indian Airlines and Air India, right? It's not that the government of India can't sort of manage an airline, but they sold it to the Tatas. So they've ordered 500 Airbus aircraft, and Indigo, which is also competing, they have ordered 550 Airbus aircraft. So over 1,000 aircraft, between just these two airlines. Whereas we are unable to even wet lease one aircraft, right? That also needs, a lot of looking into, because to find that money, in the point of bankruptcy that we are facing as a government has become quite a complex task. So the issue is beyond management. I believe these people are good. They're coming from corporate backgrounds. But where is the capital?
But again, Dr. Harsha, I recall during the presidency of Madam Chandrika Bandaranaike Kumaratunga, it was a very similar situation. We had the old tri-star fleet, which was falling apart. Flights were simply delayed, or there was just a lot going wrong. And it wasn't that the people, there was no problem with the employees, the management of Air Lanka at the time, but it simply needed
Cash, money,
cash infusion.
So that's the point. So I don't want to dwell on this point, but so this is the new economic model, right? Which is not going to sort of be the reform model. Now, we all know that unless we do the reform, this is doomed. This economy's future is doomed unless you do the reform. It doesn't matter whether A party does it or B party does it, or A president or B president. But it is beyond politics that this economy has to be reformed significantly, you see. And so that I see as a major obstacle, the way I see the economy in moving forward. So yeah.
So what you're saying is that this sort of entrenched position that we will not privatize, we won't sell off government assets. This is not in keeping with the modern world.
I mean, it doesn't have to be the modern world. I mean,
the reality of
correct. I mean, just
Sri
look at India. Don't look too far. India is the fastest growing large economy in the world. Right? Why is it happening? I mean, if you read Backstage by Montek Singh Ahluwalia, you will realize why they made those changes since 1991 when they almost went bankrupt, right? And they have stuck to that. You see, now people could argue, hey, look, NPP is not JVP, they are different. But then if that was the case, then you cannot hear stories like this, right? Because they don't gel. And also, we heard the investments. I don't know how far this is true, but I was told even the sale of Hilton has been shelved. That they think that the government should run the Hilton hotel as well. So that's just my thing. My thinking is, I mean, go beyond just this incident and look at the ideology here, right? Now, who is believing? I mean, to me, the pink ideology or the NPP ideology, if they have one, because there is no political party backing the, it's only the JVP, is slowly the JVP ideology is overtaking the NPP ideology that we saw during the campaign.
And you don't think that the JVP ideology has changed at all over the decades?
Well, the JVP ideology has not changed, because if you go to its Bhattaramulla headquarters, what you would see today are 3 photographs, one of Marx, one of Lenin and one of Engels. So they haven't taken those pictures down, right? And Tilvin Silva, who is the boss of the JVP, said, we are a socialist party. Right? There's nothing that we have changed. We are not changing. Right? It is the NPP, the so-called coalition, NPP, that brought in people from Colombo 7 and corporate Sri Lanka and picked up a few CEOs and etc. and created this facade of, look, we are different. Now, my point is this. Now, let me ask you a question, Niresh. Would you drink kasay if you are not feeling well? You know what kasay is?
Yes.
Would you drink kasay?
Well, depends on what it is, of course, but
I mean, in the sense, that's that stuff that you will get in the Ayurveda shop.
Yeah.
Will you take it?
Well, I would under certain circumstances.
I mean, what I'm saying is, would you take it if you don't believe in it? If you
Oh no, if I didn't believe it would work, then I would not.
That's precisely my point, right? So therefore, why would you do something that you don't believe in? For what? I mean, why are you going to drink kasaya if that's not going to, if you don't believe that, Sinhala Vedakama is going to fix your problem. So, if for 40, 50 years you've been, you've been crusading, right? You've been, doing everything possible, including, armed uprisings to fight for a cause, right? And suddenly, are you saying, no, I'm willing to let go of all of that, and I'm going to completely change my ideology from where I used to be for all these years, and sort of embrace Ranil Wickramasinghe's neoliberal capitalism. I mean, Ranil Wickramasinghe's neoliberal capitalism was that is his ideology. That is his thinking. I am not. I'm a social market economy believer. I believe in the marketplace, sure, but I also believe in economic justice. That's why we were arguing, even in the debt restructure. My whole argument was, look, the EPF got hammered, right? So therefore, if you are giving clawback benefits to the foreign creditors, then the EPF holders also should get the clawback benefit. Meaning, if the country does well, goes above the benchmark, the sort of the haircut that they would be willing to give us, foreigners, would be reduced.
So you were arguing for equality.
I was arguing for equality.
People.
That is because I believe in a social market economy. That's because I believe in economic justice, right? Ranil Wickramasinghe's government didn't believe in that. They said, who cares? Whack them left, right and center,
And the result was that 7 million people ended up below the poverty line.
Precisely. Now my point is, how can you sort of reconcile these two things, right? So, perhaps until the Reds have fair control over the Pinks, this will continue. But at some point, there is going to be a clash of ideologies. I mean, and that clash of ideologies is what I am seeing already, blips of that, green shoots, if you want to call it that, of, end to reform. But ending reform or slowing down reform or rolling back reform will lead us to a much more complicated and challenging situation than 2022.
Now, Dr. Harsha, these reforms, everyone agreed that there needs to be reforms, because in the end, a large reason for the economic debacle was the CPC, the CEB, Sri Lankan Airlines, and several other entities like this, which weighed down the government, while of course President Gotabaya's government took a lot of wrong policy decisions as well. So these reforms, aren't they absolutely essential to take Sri Lanka forward?
That's absolutely essential. I mean, in our blueprint, what we said is that we will follow a similar model as the Temasek model in Singapore, which means, look, the state can have certain shareholding in an enterprise, and that will depend on which enterprise one is looking at. Now, let's take Singapore Airlines, right? Now, Singapore Airlines, Temasek held a fairly significant share, but I just checked recently, it had fallen to 22%, right? And the current largest shareholder of Singapore Airlines, as I saw about a week ago, was a private equity company. So, which means you're dynamic, you can keep changing, to say no, we will not sell a single share is really, it's not going to benefit from the point of view of the investors. I mean, investors were looking at opportunities. If you're not going to reform the electricity sector, how will large investments come? can the government of Sri Lanka continue to once again say, no, we will build all the generation plants, no, we will build all the transmission lines, no, we will do everything in distribution. Can we afford to do that?
But where's the money for all that?
We don't.
Because we can't, we can't even borrow right now.
So you ask me, Niresh, didn't, Gotabaya sell a lemon? Gotabaya sold a lemon. And AKDs has also, sold half a lemon and now trying to sell the rest of the lemon.
Well,
you can say I'm biased. I am, because I belong to a political party and I'm running for office. But for a moment, keep that aside and think about what I'm saying.
But you were one of those who sounded the alarm several years before the economic disaster. And you continuously did so in Parliament, pointing to our dwindling foreign reserves and so on. So when the country ran out of forex, it didn't take you by surprise. So do you see us going down that wrong path again?
Well, I'm sounding an alarm for sure, and this time, if this government is going to, like I said, take the focus away from reform, that will be detrimental. Okay, and the other thing is, now I see people who are supporting the JVP writing articles in newspapers and in social media saying, look, we need to re-look at central bank independence. Just today I was reading, written by some professionals, obviously aligned to the government, that the central bank has to consider the development objective of this country. You see, the central bank independence was mandated, according to this article, by the IMF. No, IMF had nothing to do with central bank independence. Central bank independence was being argued for 30, 40 years in this country. You see, and it is fundamental that the politician takes their fingers out of the central bank pie. You cannot get the central bank to print money. You see, when Singapore is, it became a country, Goswami, I think, the finance minister said, look, you cannot develop a country by printing money, right? So the central bank cannot, in the medium term, long term, support the development objectives of this country. That is, they have to maintain stability, interest rates, exchange rates, inflation rates, right? But growth must come from the real sector. For that you need reform, for that you need investment, that you need bridges to the world, for that you need education, for that you need technical expertise, for that you need technology, not central bank printing money. So this is an ideological clash, right? And a lot of people don't see it. And when I spoke about this in 2020, people didn't take any notice.
But Dr. Harsha, 7 million people are below the poverty line, and you can't feed them ideology. That's not what the children can eat for breakfast, lunch and dinner. Ideology it's this sort of euphoria which carries people forward, but pragmatically speaking, it's not going to lift the people above the poverty line. It's not going to bring us progress, is it?
You see, the punch bowl at the party, you see, if you don't take away the punch bowl at the right time, everybody's going to get drunk and fall down, right? So for some politicians, it's all about the short term. It's all about, giving something to the guy so that he is happy or she is happy for a moment. That's what most politicians are saying. I will give you this, I will give you that, I'll give you this subsidy, I'll give you that subsidy. Haven't we learned crying out loud, haven't we learned, Niresh? Haven't we learned? I mean, I'm talking to people who watch your show, right? People in every class of this society, we had a majority of people voting for the NPP, right? But of course, it is not a majority still. It's only 42% voted for them. But what I'm saying is more than the alternate view. Right?
That's right.
That's right. So therefore, this is time to think. Okay, people wanted Anukumara as president to fight corruption. I am going to raise both my hands to fight corruption. Right? People like myself have nothing to hide. Nothing. Right? People can throw mud, this, that, and the other thing. That doesn't bother me. You see, that is political, jealousy. But other than that, we have to fight corruption, right? And we have to find these people who are corrupt and throw them in jail and throw the keys to the Indian Ocean. Fine, let's do that. But the economy, are you going to keep the economy in the hands of these people? I mean, on your show, on people who have watched your show and what they said, can you do those things? You cannot. Are we going to get fooled again?
Interesting thoughts indeed. We are in conversation with Dr. Harsha De Silva, who is well known to everyone. Don't go away. We're going for a short commercial break right now. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Face to Face. We are in conversation with Dr. Harsha De Silva of the SJB. So, Dr. Harsha, do you fear that this euphoria of two elections coming so close together is blinding people to the economic realities?
I don't think so. It's just, I think people are tired of politics. It's not they are being blinded, but I think, it's tiring and fed up and, want to get it over with, including myself, I'm physically
I can
tired.
imagine, yes. How's the campaign going, by the way?
Campaign is going really well, personally. I'm actually happy. The biggest reward that I can get is appreciation by people who are not politically biased. Good people, decent people, old people, young people, children. And when they say, thank you, Dr. Harsha, thank you for the service, that means a hell of a lot, right? And I hear that everywhere. And people say, a lot of people talk about 1990 suicide ambulance, way more people than I expected. But leave that aside. People say, we see you fight for us. We see you, raise your voice. We see you arguing. We want that, because there are 2.2 million people in this country, right? And there are 225 MPs. So roughly one MP for 100,000 people, right? You are sent there to do something on their behalf, not to get absent. Most people are absent most of the time.
Parliament is usually quite empty.
Right. I mean, of course, there are people in committees. Now, I chaired the Committee on Public Finance. I fought against many things. I mean, who took up the case of the visa matter? To the point I had to go and tell the speaker, look, if somebody kills me on the road, you are responsible. Right? I mean, how much pressure I was brought under. I didn't give up the fight to expose the corruption. I did it. Right? And our committee tabled a 665-page document, right, with the annexes. And what did the government MPs do? They took a privilege against me. They said, I violated the privileges of Parliament by putting the report out. right? My own committee, the government members, right? Then what happened? Some other members took it to court, and finally, what has happened now? That has been stopped, suspended, right? So I have fought on behalf of our people. I've stood on their side, right? I have taken on big fish. Now, currently, the issue with the rice, right? I saw one of the biggest mill owners threatening me on national television, right? That he is going to end my political career. I don't know what he meant by that, but he said he was going to do it. Why? Because I'm fighting the oligopoly, so that we can create competition in the rice milling market.
So let's discuss these mafias, these oligopolies, which control not just rice but everything else, whether it's sand for construction, vegetables, whatever. We've lived with these mafias because I think oligopolies is too nice a word for them. They are holding the nation to ransom. We've lived with them for decades, and governments which tried to move against them have failed miserably. I recall one time President Mahinda Rajapaksa tried to get the vegetable transporters to use proper packaging of plastic crates, and they promptly refused to do so. They were more powerful than the president. So, do you see, where do you see this ending up with this government? Is this government more likely to be able to control or crack down on those mafias?
No, it won't happen like that. You know, President Gotabaya sent TV crew with a brigadier to inspect the silos of these big rice millers, and they said they have a database, etc. You remember the brigadier with the database?
Yes, absolutely.
What happened? We had to, import rice, right? I mean, that was because he made some other unwise decisions. Now again, we are seeing this. 2 weekends ago, last weekend, we saw TV crews following, this time not a brigadier, but some other guy who I think is like the head of the Consumer Affairs Authority or something like that. And this time they got Dr. Hans, my friend. I'm glad that he's joining to do some good. I wish him luck. And he was talking about digitizing the rice stocks, etc. Now, that last time also didn't solve the problem. This time also won't solve the problem. The problem is not about the data. The problem is about market manipulation, right? So, you must understand where the problem is to find solutions. Yes, data is important and all that, right? But if there is no competition in the market, you can't fix the problem.
So, what you're saying is there's no point going round and round the problem. You need to attack the cause of the problem.
Yeah, because you cannot use the military to crack down on an oligopoly. I guess you can if I mean...
That would be a bad precedent,
bad precedent. You know, that's not the way to do it.
Because once the military is used by a government to do one thing, then where does it stop?
Precisely. So, and Gotabaya president said, look, I'm going to get the army to cultivate paddy land, remember? There were army people, they were working the paddy lands, right? But what I'm saying is those are temporary measures. So, one must understand, how do we break a monopoly? Or in this case, an oligopoly. You can do it. We did it with Shakti Rice. That is why some people are very angry with us. Because, if what we did was 8 districts or about 200 to 300 small and medium scale millers and about 10-20,000 paddy farmers, we started competing with the oligopoly the same way, right? And then we started building up our market share, would have been in the first harvest itself about 2 to 3%, 4%. Small, but it could have by this time would have been a significant player, and the power of the oligopoly would have diminished. So my point is, look, the paddy marketing board, now they are saying they are going to release $3 billion rupees to the paddy marketing board to buy paddy from the farmers. For 50 years, 60 years, we've done that and it has failed. So why are we doing it again? Because people are saying, Dila Balumu, Hari, do an experiment. We don't have time for experiments.
But are these really experiments? Are they not actually just harking back to old strategies which didn't work?
My error. I take it back. You're right. It's just nonsensical to try and do the same thing if it hasn't worked for 50 years. You got to think outside the box. I am seeing more and more. I mean, university professors, they have their role to play, right? But I don't know to what extent they would succeed in the practical situation of managing a complicated economy, because there is no ceteris paribus in this case. Ceteris paribus is everything else remaining the same. You do this and this happens. But out here, in the real economy, there is no ceteris paribus. Everything is changing. So how do you, then account for a change when you hold it constant in your equation, right? That needs experience. That needs knowledge of running businesses. That needs learning from outside this country. That needs, understanding through one's own failures in policy and otherwise. So, bringing a whole bunch of new people saying, we represent X, Y, and Z field or university, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. In this parliament, you need new people, you need young people. I grant that. Vote for new people, vote for young people, vote for good people. But you also need people who've sort of understood this game somewhat, so that we won't make the same mistakes like you said.
Now let's spend a few minutes looking at the election, both the last one and the one which is coming up in a week's time. Dr. Harsha, after the defeat at the presidential election, was there a sort of a, the SJB sitting down and discussing, well, what went wrong, what needs to be fixed, new strategies, the new way forward?
I don't think we had enough in-depth discussion on that. Perhaps because there was no time and everybody was running around, trying to get ready for this election. But certainly we made some changes. We dropped the bad apples. People who.
That's good to hear.
Yeah, and many of them didn't get a nomination this time. People pointed to A, B, C people. None of them are here, right? In this new list. So which is a positive thing. So if we learned from that, because we worked hard to build a party. Sajid founded this party, we all together, a few years ago, and then we built it from scratch. And there was a certain credibility that we had, and certain ideology, certain expectation. And then suddenly when you brought all kinds of people into it, we lost that.
A dilution.
I mean, yeah, more than a dilution, people said, look, why is it any different from the guys who we want chased away?
So there was a confusion over the political ideology, perhaps.
Not the ideology, I think it's about credibility of the people, individuals. I think that was more an issue.
So do you believe this issue has been sorted out now?
I think to a great extent it has, which is positive, and which should help the SJB, because we want to win this election. We will help the President AKD to implement his anti-corruption policies, but on the economy, no, they will need a new set of people to carry this through.
Let's talk a little bit about the role of former President Ranil Wickremesinghe and his party with the gas cylinder symbol. President Wickremesinghe did get 17% of the vote, which many people believe simply bit into the vote base of the SJB as well, because of similar ideologies. And this time around, again, that party with the symbol of the gas cylinder is running. What do you have to say about that?
The gas in the cylinder has escaped, no?
Whether it is an empty one or a full one is not specified by the Election Commission.
No, now the cylinder is empty because a lot of people voted. I mean, a lot of people watching this, perhaps, who voted for the cylinder, voted because they want to, vote for President RW. They thought it was the right thing to do. They want to sort of appreciate the effort in, sort of fixing, at least in the short term, issues that many people watching perhaps would have faced. But now he's no longer here. He's gone into retirement. His name is not on the list. He is not coming back to Parliament. So therefore, I think.
But isn't he there behind the scenes?
No, he's there. That's fine. I mean, that's all right. He can express his views. Sometimes hilarious, sometimes not. But there is always something to take from what he says, right? I pay close attention to what he says because there is some substance in what he says most of the time. Now, I mean, the reform ideology, the reform agenda must carry on, right? So therefore, I think those who voted for the gas cylinder because they wanted to vote for RW and the reform ideology can vote for the SJB, because our agenda on reform remains steadfast and we are not changing that. Only that we are not the neoliberal extreme position of the former president, Honorable Ranil Wickremesinghe, but we are middle of the road. But we appreciate the need for reform, right? So therefore, I think the option is very much available for those people to vote with us and go with us. I really got to go.
Well, Dr. Harsha, thank you very much for being with us, but I'm afraid we are out of time and you are a very busy person these days as well. Perhaps after the election we can have you when you're not so busy. But I do thank you for being with us this evening. Any final thoughts that you'd like to tell our viewers?
Can I plug my number?
Of course.
SJB, Colombo District, number 9.
Thank you very much, and thank you to you at home for watching us. Don't go away because the news is coming up next. Have a good evening.